greeted him, but it sounded hollow then, and it did again now. Even amongst those who were born vampires, the purebreds such as himself, he was an anomaly and stronger than the rest. The turned vampires battled their darker natures too, but not as badly as the purebreds did. Because turned vamps were human before becoming vampires, they had more humanity in them than purebreds did. If he gave himself over to the darkness, he would never know this sensation of being torn in two again, and he would slaughter hundreds, possibly thousands, before being stopped, if he could be stopped. No matter what, he couldn't lose control like that. He didn't like humans overly much, but there were rules, and they must be obeyed if the vampire race was to continue undetected. Vampires were stronger than humans, but they were also vastly outnumbered by mortals. Fear would have humans turning on them, slaughtering them, and studying them like lab rats. Some, if not many of the mortals, may try to become vampires, which would create more savages. If such a thing happened, the vampire food supply would be depleted, and the world would fall into chaos. The rules had to be strictly followed. This had been instilled into him from the moment of his birth. His parents had made sure he knew he would one day lead and keep the vampire and human races protected, that he would become a defender, a vampire who protected the innocents and made sure the rules were obeyed. Things may be far different now than when his parents had been alive, but that mission still drove him every day. Beside him, Declan shifted his stance as he glanced at Ronan from the corner of his eye. Declan's eyes were so pure gray they appeared silver as he surveyed the scene beneath them. He ran a hand through his dark auburn hair before tugging at the ends. At 600 years of age, Declan was the second oldest of their group, younger than only him. They'd been fighting together since Declan had reached maturity at 24. Ronan had known Declan for his entire life, yet he still didn't know all of Declan's secrets. He did know that he'd never seen his friend so apprehensive about a possible kill before, and he didn't understand it. He'd expected Declan to be eager to destroy Joseph. Ronan suspected Declan's apprehension was because his father had been the last defender to give in to his savage nature, and it was stirring up old memories, rather than the fact they were now hunting one of their own. Joseph had been a powerful fighter and ally for nearly 50 years. However, he and Declan had been like two dogs circling each other whenever they were in the same room. Declan's more easygoing nature had abraded with Joseph's austere personality. In truth, Ronan had never liked Joseph either, and never considered him a friend as he did the other defenders who worked with him. But Joseph had been a strong fighter, and had made it all the way through the rigorous training every purebred that worked with him had to endure. Ronan had seen little of Joseph over the years as he'd run the training facility for turned and purebred vamps who wished to hunt savages. Months ago, Joseph had given in to his bloodlust and become a savage. Ronan had been trying to track him down ever since, but Joseph knew how they operated and how to fly under their radar. Not even Brian, a turned vamp who sometimes helped them to track down savage vamps, could pinpoint Joseph's location. Until now. Brian had called a few hours ago to let him know he'd gotten a track on Joseph in this area of Providence, Rhode Island. This club was the most likely place to attract Joseph. A club full of drunk humans was a homing beacon for vampires on the prowl. It was easy to prey on the humans here, and if Ronan got the chance, he would feed here tonight. Feeding could wait. For now, they were on the hunt for something else. His eyes swept the dance floor once more. Unable to take the flashing lights in places such as this, he'd put on a pair of dark sunglasses before entering, but the pulse of the flashing lights still made his head pound. The thumping beat of the music vibrated the floor beneath his feet. His gaze landed on the DJ. He ran his tongue over his fangs as he contemplated tearing the man's throat out to end the annoying beat. What had happened to real music, like Beethoven and Chopin? He'd even take some Duke Ellington, Frank Sinatra, or Billy Joel over this. This crap was enough to drive the best of vampires over the edge, and he was far from the best. But the humans liked it as they ground against each other with a frenzy the equivalent of foreplay. Movement behind him drew his attention to Killian and Saxon as they approached from the shadows. The few humans who had been standing nearby shrank away from Killian and vanished down the stairs. "Anything?" Ronan demanded of them.